Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show live entertainment lifestyle variety talk show series. It's a real pleasure to have you here on the show today. Hope you guys are doing well. And thanks so much for being a part of the broadcast today. We're coming to you live worldwide here from Levity Hall Central, as you guys call it. And if this is your first time watching, thanks for joining us here. We've got an extraordinary guest. You see him there on the screen coming to us live from Avon, Connecticut. He is an award-winning and renowned and incredible author, journalist, playwright, and so much more. We are talking about Joel Samberg. He is responsible for so much reading material, novels, fiction, nonfiction, and so much more. A brand new one out, Almost Like Praying, we're going to talk about. He's written on the life of Karen Carpenter and even his grandfather, Benny Bell, extraordinary comedy songwriter, and so much more, and even the Jewish Book of Lists. He's covered it all. He comes originally from New York, where I hail from, New York, Long Island. He makes his home in northern Connecticut in the greater Hartford region. He's been doing this for a long time, and it is our pleasure to welcome him to the Jim Masters Show live. Gang, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, the channel you're watching right now that brings you all this great entertainment, feel free to do it. If you'd like to comment live during the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel Jim Masters TV. That would be absolutely fantastic. We would love that. And click that notification bell so you never miss any of the episodes that we do, which is extraordinary. Joel, welcome to the Jim Masters Show live. It is a pleasure to have you here today.
Jim, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It was all true, except I have to do a lot of work to live up to the word renowned. I don't know about that one yet, but we'll get there. With shows like yours, maybe I could reach that.
Well, your mother sent a fax and she said, Jim, you best use the word renowned or else. So we figured slip it in.
Well, thank you. It was a lovely introduction, really.
Oh, my pleasure. You know what I think is really, really terrific is the fact that you decided to become a professional writer by the time you were 14. Because by the time, by the time you became a teenager, nearly everything you saw, overheard, and learned in school or simply wondered about, sort of turned your head at first into books and plays and movies. Tell us about that. Growing up on the island with the influence of, New York City. We were sort of spoiled with having New York City as sort of our backdrop. Tell us about those early influences, and were there others in the family that sort of spurred and inspired you on?
To my knowledge, in the immediate family, there are no other writers than my grandfather, who was a songwriter, who also did dabble in some books, self-published books in his case. But what you said about everything that I saw, overheard, learned in school, wondered about, questioned, turning in my head at first into books and plays and movies is absolutely correct. I was doing that since I was, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. Maybe it's because I love movies and books so much. Why I want to do it, I don't know. If I'm good at it, maybe that's subjective. That I want to do it, you can't argue that. Now, here's the thing. If you just allow me this little detour here. When I was 11, I wrote a screenplay, a musical Western, no less.
Wow.
I probably had just seen Paint Your Wagon or something.
Yeah.
And Clint Eastwood. Anyway, I wrote it, including the songs, by the way, and I sent it to MGM. I think I went to the library. I went to the library a lot, and the librarian helped me find the name and address of an executive there. And I sent the screenplay to him. And he sent me a note back a couple of weeks later. He said he wasn't able to use it, but I had it in a very, very imaginative style, he said, and MGM would be happy to consider whatever I produced in the future, whatever I would send him. And I still have that letter, by the way. If you would have warned me, I would have gotten it and held it up, but it's in a closet somewhere. But I still have that letter. So that made me feel maybe one day when I grow up, I can become a writer. Then, following that, I had to do a book report in English class. I think it was 9th grade. I don't want to say her name just in case she's still alive.
Yeah.
I did the book report, and the teacher, Mrs. something or other, or Miss something or other, sent a nasty note home to my parents accusing me of plagiarizing that book report because she said it was too well written for a 14-year-old. Now, here's the thing. I did not plagiarize that report. I just take writing very seriously. I give it everything I've got. And when she sent that nasty note home to my parents, it was proof to me that, yeah, I'm never going to give up trying to be a writer. This is what I'm going to do with my life.
That was
And,
pivotal. That was pivotal. It was like a challenge.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, that's a bad teacher. But a couple of years later, I had two really great teachers, Mr. Jaccarino and Mrs. Newman, both English teachers. And they encouraged me, and they told me to move on and go on and try everything and never give up. And as a matter of fact, the novel that was published right before Almost Like Praying, which is called Blowing in the Wind, is dedicated to both of those high school English teachers, because teachers can make a very positive difference in your life. Good ones.
There it is there on the screen.
Blowing in the Wind. Yeah, 2 years ago, same publisher as Almost Like Praying, and a couple of the same characters too.
9-year-old Daniel Hillman, a musical prodigy on Long Island, knows he'll be the first preteen in history to write, arrange, and perform his own hit album. Even though there are many other things he'd like to do, he knows that his older brother, Stephen, will become the first teenager to sort of circumnavigate the globe, and his terrible school grades notwithstanding, he knows that his sister, Lori, is destined to become something great, even though she cries almost every day in school and is an emotional wreck. What he doesn't know is that life can get in the way. Parents, cheaters, Vietnam, jealousy, desire. Tell us about this. This really is also playing off your own upbringing, your own background during the time period, growing up in New York on Long Island, and all the things that were going on in real life. Tell us about the inspirations for Blowing in the Wind, my friend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is very, very exceedingly loosely based on a lot of real things that happened to me, and a lot of real feelings, and a lot of real challenges. I went through a childhood where I was overcompensating for my innate inherent shyness by always singing and always telling jokes, which was an influence from my comedy musician grandfather. And I got a lot of attention that way. And I guess it sort of played with my head a little bit, making me think that I can end up doing whatever I wanted to. Then life gets in the way. Things happen. Things change. People die. People come and go. Projects get buried. They get lambasted. They just, things don't always work out the way you want. Well, that's what happens to Daniel in the book, Blowing in the Wind. Now, of course, he's strictly a musician, and here's a key phrase, he thinks he is. I mean, He is. He's a great musician, but just because you're really, really good at something, does that mean you're predestined to do that for the rest of your life? I mean, that's right. One of the questions. That's one of the main questions of the novel. But I also brought in a lot of friends from that time in my real life in Westbury. I know you have a lot of Westbury listeners, or I assume you do anyway.
The viewers, all around the world. They're international, watching Canada, Sweden.
And the 2 or 3 that are from Westbury, I'm talking to them right now. If you read
on the island,
on the island, if you read Blowing with the Wind, you'll recognize a lot of real life places like Eisenhower Park,
yes,
which I call Salisbury Park because that's what it was called when I was a kid. Roosevelt Field, Hofstra University,
Westbury Music Fair,
the LIE, the Northern State, the Southern State. It's all there.
What exit were you?
No, that's New Jersey. That's a New Jersey joke. And I lived in New Jersey for 20 years too, by the way.
Wow, you've covered the whole gamut of diner heaven on the island and diner heaven in New Jersey.
Yeah, I was on Long Island for 30 years, New Jersey for 20 years, and now here in Connecticut.
Now you're in
Connecticut. 11 years, 12 years, yeah.
Yeah. So this book, again, like you say, loosely sort of follows your own existence during that time, which is fantastic. What has been the feedback to Blowing in the Wind?
Oh, Blowing in the Wind. A lot of people say that it's just a really fun visit back to those days, because a lot of it takes place in the late 50s, early 60s, the bulk of it, up until the mid 70s, I believe. And people just enjoy visiting it the way I described the places and the people and the events, concerts at Eisenhower Park and that sort of thing. and the special feelings that were inherent in the era because of the war, the Vietnam War in the late 60s. I bring all of that in one way or another, and people just like thinking about it from the comfort and safety of their own living rooms. And that's the feedback I got. And that's the best part, because the writing for me is the joy, but the validation of that joy is being able to share it with as many people as possible, which is why shows like yours are so important. Because as you know, marketing and promotion is can be very, very expensive. And I'm as poor as a temple mouse. I have no idea what it's like to be a church mouse. So I got to do what I can. My publisher, a legitimate publisher. It's not self-published. It's not a vanity press, but it is a small independent, and funds are limited for marketing and advertising and promotion. So we do what we can with people like you. So the more that I can share my work, I'm not in it for the money or the fame. Even though renowned,
you have the love. You have the love of it. Yeah.
I don't want to have to retire forever based on the proceeds of a book. I just want to share it with as many people as possible. That's the joy, and the joy is priceless.
Now, you're in Connecticut, and the Carpenters hail originally from New Haven, Connecticut. And we know, of course, the beloved Richard and Karen Carpenter, the incredible 70s duo, 80s duo, incredible sound, and so much more. You penned this very special book for the Karen Carpenter, a Carpenter aficionado, or somebody who just loves the music, loves the story, can't get enough, really. What was the inspiration for penning this extraordinary book, Joel?
Very interesting history as far as I'm concerned. I mean, back in 1970, when they first broke out with their first two big hits, I was in junior high school, William Tresper Clark senior high school in Westbury. And, I was an unsophisticated kid. I was shy again. I was not into heavy rock and roll. But I had bought that album because I always heard those two hits on Lying on Jones Beach, when Dan Ingram or Cousin Brucey or Harry Harrison or Ron Lundy would play it on WABC.
Legendary voices, yes.
And I love those two songs, so I bought the album. I didn't have a whole hell of a lot of albums. So when I was cornered in the hallway at school by these two bullies, Michael and Randy, again, whose last name shall remain.
You still remember the names?
Yeah. Well, I don't want them to come and beat me up, so I'll just.
Have they ended up in any of the books with the names changed?
Actually, they are mentioned in the Karen Carpenter book. Yeah, and I think their names are mentioned. Their first names, not their last.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I'm not stupid either. So they asked me, because I was into music. I was in the band, I was in the chorus, I was in all that music stuff. So they thought I was a quote, music guy. And they said, "Hey, Samberg, who's your favorite group?" Fully expecting me not to say Led Zeppelin or, Grand Funk Railroad or something like that. And I said the Carpenters, because at that time, that's what I was listening to. Well, they slammed me against the locker really hard, which is, explains a lot. But that's another topic for another day. But interestingly, so that happened. That's a true story. Yeah. But interestingly, that was the end of the story at that time. I didn't revisit the Carpenters until about 2010. I played it a few times back in 1970. And then, like most of us, we have a whole bunch of albums that we just can't get around to, that we just forget about. And that was the case with the Close to You album. But then one of my two daughters, when she was moving into her first apartment in Brooklyn, the trend at the time was to hang up old album covers, frame them, and put them in your apartment.
Oh, that was so big. Yes.
So she looked through my old stack, found the Close to You album, borrowed it, left the disc, the 33 and a third disc with me. And I listened to that again for the first time in 30 years. And was reacquainted with the music, but with a little bit more sophisticated musical background now. And I started wondering about them. I saw that movie that they made about the television movie that they made about Karen's life.
Yes.
Became a little bit fascinated. Then read Randy Schmidt's book, the quintessential biography of Karen Carpenter called Little Girl Blue. And I decided, well, I want to write something too. Now, Randy wrote the biography. That doesn't need to be written again. It was great. His book is great. But I want to do an exploration into her life and an appreciation and a contemplation, and try to tackle such questions as what might have been different if this was different, or what might have she been doing now had she lived.
Yes.
She died almost 40 years ago.
That's hard to believe, isn't it? It was 1983.
Yeah, heart
Yes.
failure, complications from
Shocked
anorexia.
anorexia, shocked the world.
So my book,
Some Kind of Lonely Clown.
Clown,
The Music, Memory, and Melancholy Lives of
which is a
Karen
line
Carpenter. Tell us
from,
about the title. Tell us about how you came up with that title.
It's interesting about the title. It's one of those.
There's so much truth to it.
Well, that's not, there is, but that's not what I'm referring to. When I was researching the book, I got in touch with a lot of people who used to work at A&M, which was their record company. The one
That's right.
Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss founded back in the mid-'60s. And a lot of them ended up speaking with me, but there was one who asked me what the name of the book was, and I told him Some Kind of Lonely Clown I'm thinking of, because Karen to me seemed like some kind of lonely clown. She was very lonely in her life. She never got what she wanted, which was true love. She never had children, which was the thing she wanted more than anything else.
Yeah.
She never found true happiness, which is something that she wanted. She never found her mother's devotion. Richard had that more than she did. But she also had a sense of humor, and she liked to clown around.
Yes.
And she just liked to have a good time. And she probably did that because she was inherently very, very bright, very exceedingly bright. So I think if you are, you know how to do that, even though you are suffering on the inside.
Exactly.
And
in
so
the beginning, she didn't want to be out front, right? In the beginning, she was the drummer. And then when they really, they heard that voice, they sort of, we want you out front. You got to be out front because this voice is extraordinary, unlike any other. And it is true. When you hear Karen Carpenter come on the radio or what have you, there is nobody that comes close to sounding or replicating that sound. So many singers sometimes today, it's all sounds so similar, generic, or very close.
And also dance around a note. And she
hers is pure singing, and it's the distinctive, incredible, infectious quality to the sound of her voice. She can project warmth and feeling and all of that. But in the beginning, which might surprise people, as you know, she didn't really want to be out front. She was the drummer in the band.
Yeah. Now, two things. I just want to get back and finish that story about the title, because this one guy at A&M, when he found out I was calling him that, he got really, really mad. And he said, you know what? Richard's going to sue your tush off. He didn't use tush, but and he said, you're probably going to get sued, and probably a whole bunch of fans are going to come after you. Well, first of all, I don't care. I'm going to call it what I want to call it. It's just a title. And to my way of thinking, it was entirely accurate. So that was one of those cases where, a title of all things gets you in trouble and not the actual book itself. Interestingly enough, I'm sure you have it somewhere. The book that I wrote before that about my grandfather, that uses a title that made my late mother very, very angry at me.
Grandpa had a long one,
which is the name of a song, and it's about noses, for those of you whose minds are in the gutter.
See, I thought attention span is what you were talking about.
Yes, I heard you have a very short attention span.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there you go, right? He's somebody, we'll go back to the Karen Carpenter a little bit, but a legend. This is your grandfather, the comedic songwriter extraordinaire, Benny Bell. Tell us about Benny Bell. People might be surprised that there's this family connection.
Oh God, yes. Benny Bell was a very, very suspicious, stubborn, cantankerously, in terms of business, cantankerous guy who just didn't want to listen to people when it came to his career. He just wanted to do what he wanted to do, which was make people smile and laugh.
Now, has any of that been passed down, or?
I don't ask me that.
Ask the family and the rest.
Ask the kids, the grandkids. So what I always like to say about him, and I think I put this somewhere in the book, is that even though he ended up more or less with a life of near poverty, because he always reinvested whatever he earned with his music back into projects that didn't work. So he was always looking for his next buck, and he just never really made it. But I always considered him one of the most successful entertainers of all time, for the very simple reason because he ended up doing exactly what he wanted to do without compromise. He never wanted to take an office job. He never wanted to take a delivery job. He never wanted to do anything else but write silly songs, perform them on records, perform them at shows in the Catskills with Dr. Demento for a while. And that's what he did. So how could you ever call him unsuccessful? He was the most successful guy I know, even though he was one of the poorest guys I ever knew.
There you are with his comedy albums too.
Yeah. He had a bunch of them. He had about over 150 singles and albums. He was an amazing guy, and he did it all himself. He wrote everything. He recorded them in his own studio. He designed the album covers. He designed the labels on the vinyl. As a matter of fact, is he on
your dad's side or your mom's side?
He's my father's father. His name is Benjamin Samberg. He picked Benny Bell during a time when they were when the authorities were coming down on some people for salacious materials in the media.
And names would always be changed. A lot of Jewish names were shortened and changed. Right. And exactly, that was just a thing of the time. But yeah, so you really got a chance to learn more about him. So this book itself, tell us about it. Personal stories. How did you do all the research?
I think, well, here's the thing. He was very aware of his own mortality, as was his wife, my grandmother, Molly. And they started making plans several years before their deaths to hand everything down to the rest of us in the family so that nothing would be destroyed or discarded. And every time he visited, every single time he visited for about 2 years before they started passing on, he would give me papers and folders and books and records and diaries and journals and ledgers. And I had an entire file cabinet full of his stuff. So I had my research built in right there in my basement. I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to ask anybody. His life, and he documented everything. He may have been just, slightly on the spectrum that way. He jotted down almost everything that he ever did in his life, which helped me as a journalist and as an author. I don't know how much it helped him personally, but that's, I guess, irrelevant.
Good thing he did that.
Good thing he did that for my sake. And what I wanted to do was, since a day by day, week by week, month by month biography was almost impossible, because as much as he did document it, it was a long life and a long career, hence the title. That's what it also refers to. I just couldn't do that, and I don't think that would have been interesting, because there was such mundane things, just the minutia of calling this person and trying this and responding to that letter, and that stuff is boring. So what I wanted to do was something interesting. So I thought maybe I'll write a half biography and a half, what's the word? My own journal about my life with him, what it was like to be his grandson. So that's why I call it personal notes on the life, career, and legacy of Benny Bell. And it goes chapter by chapter. One chapter about his life and what he did at a certain point. The next chapter about my relationship with him and how I responded to it and how I developed from it, and back and forth all through the book like that. And I think that made it a little different from all other kinds of books of its sort. And it was published by Bear Manor Media, which is one of the biggest and best publishers of entertainment books there is out there.
What was one thing about him that either you learned by knowing him or learned later on after he passed and, preparing this book? What was one major thing that stuck with you and influenced and inspired you about your grandfather, Benny Bell?
So many. Two quickies. One, his quick wit. I mean, it's one thing to sit in your office or wherever you do your work and sit there for as long as you need to come up with comedy lyrics and a comedy song. It's another to suddenly say so. I remember, I'll never forget this. I think it was at a bar mitzvah, and I was a kid, a family, family's son was having a bar mitzvah, and I was with him. And at the end of the service, the rabbi gets up and he does what I think is called a convocation. He just makes a speech about something that's on his mind. So this particular rabbi at this particular temple on this particular day gave a speech about the expediency of life, how we all have to do things fast, how everything is fast, instant books, instant television movies, instant this, instant that. He just didn't like the way the world was shaping up with everything being so quick. It's here and it's gone. And then right after, my grandfather and I met the rabbi in the lobby, and my grandfather held up a cup of coffee and he said, "Great instant coffee." And the rabbi just almost spilled his own coffee because he was so taken by the quick-wittedness of my grandfather. But the other thing
to him.
The other thing, which maybe says something about heredity, and I write about this in the book, and I haven't come up with a conclusion, but it's just interesting is all it is this. On my own, I used to be an account executive at a public relations firm in Manhattan, and I'd often see some homeless people on the street. And one of my coworkers and I would often take lunch and see other ones around Bryant Park near the library, and we'd talk about it and just wonder about them. And I remember thinking, well, maybe they should form some sort of union. So because they're part of they're part of the fabric of the at that time. This is back in the 80s. They're part of the fabric of society. They're part of what makes New York at that time, at least. Probably still, but I haven't been there in a while. And maybe they should have some sort of union. So at this time, I was writing a whole bunch of short plays, which actually became a series called 6 Tens from a 50, which was performed in Manhattan about 20 years ago. And one of the short plays was called Homeless Equity. And it was about that. It was about a homeless person and a lawyer who get together and try to form a union to help the homeless people maintain their not dignity, but maintain their standing as upright citizens in Manhattan. So I wrote that, and it was performed. And then right after that is when I started working on the book. Grandpa had a long one. And as I was doing research, I came across a little booklet that my grandfather wrote called, I forgot what it was called, Hobo, something like Hobo Union. My play was called Homeless Equity, as in actor's equity, the word equity.
Yeah.
And his pamphlet was called Hobo's Union, which was a little booklet for hobos and bums and transients and homeless people to start their own union. I hadn't seen it before I had written my play.
Wow.
And I was thinking, wait a minute. There's a lot of things that can be inherited, a voice, shape of a face, hair color, even likes and dislikes. But topics for little plays about bums? That's a whole new field of science.
That's a stretch, yes.
That's one thing I learned about me, I guess. You asked about him, but one thing I learned about me is that I think like him, which can be scary too.
That is incredible. That is really that is so amazing. So it's great when you get a chance to really, dig in like that. And again, that must have been.
And he left an impression on everybody. I mean, I saw a play. One of my kids got me tickets to Christopher Walken play in the city. A Behanding in Spokane was the name of the play. And I went to the bathroom during intermission, and Dick Cavett was there in the bathroom. I mean, he also saw the play. He just didn't hang out in the bathroom. But I went up to him. Now, I happen to know through my research that Dick Cavett was the booker of the Johnny Carson show.
Yes.
Early 60s, when my grandfather tried to get booked onto the Johnny Carson show. So I wondered if Dick Cavett remembered my grandfather, and I asked him about him in the bathroom after we zipped up. And he did. He said, "Oh, that guy was a nut. He was a funny, crazy guy." And I said, "Yeah, well, you didn't book him." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "It's okay. He survived." But even somebody like Dick Cavett remembered him all those years later, because he's, once you met him, you never
Yeah.
forgot him.
Oh, no. Right. Exactly.
Joe
Yeah.
Franklin was a big fan of
Oh,
his.
Joe
And
Franklin. Yeah. Channel
Rose Marie
9.
was a big, he wrote a song called Ship Ahoy, Sailor Boy, which I have the sheet music hanging on my wall.
Do you really?
And, she was from the Dick Van Dyke Show. And
Yes.
I asked her if she could write a little blurb for my book about my grandfather, and she did. So that's in there. And she remembered him. And yeah, he was a presence to reckon with when he was alive and even now.
Absolutely incredible. A lot of people are fascinated by all of this that we're talking about here,
How do
and
we
we
know
have
that?
we have yeah the
Oh,
comments that are coming in. Yeah, the Jen, Pennsylvania is welcoming you, and Christine in
oh,
North Carolina is welcoming you to the Jim Masters Show live,
yeah,
and Jane
excellent.
in Sweden, and Merlin in Ontario, Canada, and everybody here. Good to see everybody. Welcome, lovelies, to the show. You also in the Karen Carpenter part, and we have so
Yes,
much more to talk about.
sure.
What are some things you learned? If somebody is a Karen Carpenter, they can't get enough of her story.
Mhm.
What is it about this book, from your perspective, that they might learn, that they might appreciate, that they might give them a different perspective to what they may have already known or just casually heard about Karen Carpenter?
I think probably, well, a few things, but I think perhaps the most interesting is that there probably would not have been a Carpenters had there not been a Richard and or a Karen. It was a perfect storm is the wrong
Union.
word, but a
Yeah,
perfect
perfect
union
union. Yeah.
of serendipity, because he needed her for the talent and she needed him for the business. I mean, he was a brilliant musician,
Yeah.
brilliant arranger and composer, and instrumentalist.
Yeah.
But he didn't have that special likability factor. And I don't think he would have made it had she decided not to come along with him, or had he not asked her to come along with him. Conversely, I don't think she would have gone along with him if he didn't ask.
Right.
Because even though she did love music and she knew she had a special gift,
Yeah.
I personally, through all of my research, don't think that was the driving force of her life.
Yeah.
I don't think she would have gone into it at all if Richard didn't drag her along. So that's one interesting thing. The other is that, and I think Randy Schmidt talks about this in his book, she was the one who got the record contract first when she was 16. And it was a record contract just with Karen, not with Richard.
Right.
And she cut a record when she was 16 with Magic Lamp Records, and it didn't go anywhere. But I don't think a lot of people know that either, that it was her at the age of 16 that more or less, in a way, kicked off the whole thing in a certain respect. There's so many interesting things like that. I mean, the guys she went out with, the guys Richard didn't want her to go out with, the whole marriage debacle. It's endless.
How did it, now, as an early fan of their music growing up, like you said, as a kid in New York on Long Island,
slammed into a locker.
how did it change anything or reinforce anything? Did you, after writing this, as you're a fan, but you're writing it separate from being the fan, did it leave you with any different feeling about Karen? Did you feel protective of her? Did you feel sad? Were there any emotions that rose because you knew her from the music and everything you heard growing up, and now you're really delving into the life and understanding the person behind the image and everything? Did it give you a reappreciation of her talents, who she was as a person? What did it do for you as fan first, and now the author?
Yeah, incredible sadness because of what could have been. I mean, they were, extraordinarily successful with the way they were. But I think had they done things a little differently in terms of marketing and promotion, they may have done even more. And I think there would be far fewer people today who dislike them, if you know what I mean. Because as As many
Yes.
millions of people as there are who love them,
Yes.
there are almost just as many who despise them for one reason or another.
I think
And I
that's
think
one good thing that
yeah,
as generations are being reintroduced to some of this music of these
uh-huh,
different times, there's either a reappreciation or a newfound appreciation, because there are generations that hear music now that never knew this music existed. They're like,
right.
when did that come out? Is that new? And you're like, no, that
Yes,
actually came out in 1972 or
and
whatever.
if you listen to their catalog, they had a working professional A&M recording life between 1970 and basically 1981-ish, or somewhere around there. So it really wasn't very long, but it
Yeah.
holds up very well. If you listen to it now, you'll enjoy and
Even
appreciate the
her Christmas
sophistication of the
music and
music. Yeah, all of
yeah,
it. It
all of it.
really it holds up to today. It sounds like it could have been recorded yesterday.
It
It's still,
evokes real warmth
yeah.
and you
As
just
as Herb as Herb Alpert once said, it sounds like she's singing directly to you.
doesn't it? And
Yeah,
that is the true trick of a real artist. Even if, even as an author, or
yeah,
as a playwright, it's like you're writing for that person who is the reader, the consumer of the material. It's a
right,
master. That's how I look at it as a broadcaster, a communicator, a conversationalist, is that
yeah,
there may be millions, thousands, whatever, watching, listening, but it's just you and I. And I think
right.
that's much more relatable.
Yeah,
And
and there
how
are
do you
two other.
describe I was
I'm
gonna say,
sorry.
how do you describe your writing style? How do
Oh,
you define it? I know others can define it, but how do you define your style?
I just, to me, it's a combination of an art and a science and a what I call a comfort. I just need it to read well and make sense. I I I might change just one word out of an entire paragraph if I feel that one word will make it more readable and relatable. I don't know if I have a style. Well, I probably do have a style, but like you said yourself just now, I think other people have to tell me what it is. I don't consciously go after it. It is what it is. It. I think I do have one because I remember Mrs. Newman, that English teacher I told you about earlier, to whom I dedicated my previous novel, Blowing in the Wind. She told me I have a certain kind of style, and she related it to the author Wallace Stegner, I think was his name. And I never was able to identify exactly what she meant by that, but whatever she meant by that, she was saying that I have a specific style. It reads a certain way, and whatever that is, it's been that way since I began.
Another incredible book that you have penned is this one, and this is fresh. This is hot off the presses. This is much
Ah,
newer, almost like praying.
oh,
This one I know, like they all are, is extra near and dear to your heart.
it is.
Tell
It is.
us, I would
Yeah.
say, I mean, people, the response that people have had to it is extraordinary. It's
So
already
far,
winning.
not bad. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's winning fans because of its exceedingly moving portrayal of the challenges, secrets, and the consequences inherent in one distinctive household on suburban Long Island. And the reviews that have come in, a compelling story of a family we can all relate to. The members are flawed yet entirely likable, particularly one young girl who is the touchstone for all that is good in this interesting clan that comes from Gary, a Montana. Um, Tell us about this book, Almost Like Praying. What was the inspiration for this one, Joel?
No, very specific. Two separate memories that coalesced in my head and became the novel. One was I had a friend growing up in Westbury. Real,
Just one?
yeah, that's why I am like I am. And he had a mother who was very cold and icy, and
Uh,
every kid in the neighborhood was a little bit scared of her,
mm.
including me. And we never wanted to go over his house because we
There
thought we
was
might
always
bump into
one on the
her.
block, wasn't there? On
Yeah,
Long Island, there was always
yeah.
that one. Get off my
So
lawn.
right, exactly. Or would go into his car. Why didn't you say hi to me, Joel? Things like that. So she stayed in my mind. Okay, so that's one thing. Then the second thing was, growing up on Long Island, whenever you have to go anywhere, often you have to go through the Bronx. Of cross Bronx Expressway to go to the George
Yes.
Washington Bridge. So we would always pass
Dreaded.
apartment buildings on the side of the road, and you'd see, graffiti and garbage and kids playing in the street unsupervised. And I always wondered about those kids. They were my age at that time. And I thought, well, how would they fare in Westbury, in my suburban neighborhood? So somewhere along the line, a fictional kid from the Bronx, who I saw in my head driving through the Bronx, became Maria. And she becomes the granddaughter of my friend's mother, Dolores, who lived across the street. And the book sprung from that. How would this cold, icy mother/grandmother, who has a very specific and definite idea of what life should be for her as a privileged Irish Catholic originally from the Boston area, what would happen if she was saddled with an illegitimate half Puerto Rican kid? And that's exactly what happens in Almost Like Praying. And it's about that relationship and how it develops and why things were the way they were for Dolores and how Maria helps them out. Now, the title, Maria's father is a very troubled young man named Doug. And for a while, he's a police officer in New York City, in the Bronx. And to try to, and he's very talented. He could sing, he could dance, he can play ball, he can do everything. And he's having a hard time of it as a cop. So to try to loosen things up and have a little fun, he joins a community theater production of West Side Story, and he gets the role of Tony in West Side Story. And the woman who plays Maria in this community theater production of West Side Story, whose real name is Maria, he falls in love with. And as you and I'm thinking a large portion of your audience would know, Almost Like Praying is a line from a song in West Side Story.
That's right.
From the song Maria, say it loud and there's music playing, say it soft and it's almost like praying. And that phrase comes into play not only because of the play that my two main characters are in, but a lot of things that happen throughout the book, which starts way back in the early 1900s when Dolores' family emigrate here from Ireland. Things happen where it is almost like praying. Something happens and somebody says, well, that's almost like wishing, or that's almost like hoping, or that's almost like praying. Right. So the title just jumped out at me. I mean, like all my books, they had they had other titles first. Almost Like Praying was originally called Saving Grace because the little girl's name was Grace. And then it became Maria Maria, and it ended up as Almost Like Praying, which I think is almost perfect.
How'd you come up with the cover, the look, the photo, all of that? Because that says a lot right there too, Joel.
The book, the novel, is from the perspective, well, not the perspective, but the book comes to be because of the kid who lives across the street who ends up being a journalist. Now, this character is the main character of my previous book, Blowing in the Wind. He becomes a journalist, and he, like me, knows that Dolores, the mother, the one in the red shirt there, or whatever color it is, I'm colorblind. He lives in that house across the street, which you can see there. And he's looking out of his window and he sees this scene. He sees this grandmother with her arm around the little girl. And he says, Dolores Kelleher? She would never do that. She was too icy. She was too standoffish. She was too loveless. She was too suspicious. She would never do that. So this journalist across the street researches the whole family history. And he's the one who ends up writing Almost Like Praying. But that's where the cover comes from. It's the scene that a kid across the street who is now a grown-up journalist sees from his bedroom window right there to over the girl's right shoulder. So that's the cover.
What's really amazing is the variety and scope of your writing. You touch upon so many different areas of life. Do you have a favorite genre, favorite area that is your go-to, or you just whatever inspires you, you're going to start putting pen to paper and start rocking and rolling with it?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have a particular style. I have a couple of favorite authors, and I have a couple of favorite overall thematic things like family histories and that sort of thing. And why I think one theme that comes back over and over again in both the fiction and the nonfiction is why people end up becoming what they become, why they end up doing what they end up doing, professionally speaking. That seems to be a common theme. I write about that a lot. I use a lot of uh, a lot of my own history, but it's always couched in deep fiction. As a matter of fact, a novel that I'm writing now, it's called Jackie Jester. It is a completely fictionalized version of my grandfather's life, completely fictionalized, but it wouldn't exist if he hadn't existed. So I use a lot of my own life, a lot of my own history, and those gnawing questions about what you're supposed to end up doing. And I think the reason I do that is because, as we discussed at the beginning of our conversation, I've never wanted to be anything but a writer, but I am going to be 65 soon. And frankly, heart on the sleeve, cards on the table, I'm not really where I would have preferred to be. I mean, I've had modest successes along the way, as you've noted, but it's a very difficult profession, and it's always an uphill climb, and there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and all of that add up to the fact that I don't have the kind of validation that I would really prefer, and yet I keep on doing it. And that, again, is part of the theme of my life, is why did I choose this? Why did I end up doing this? And I explore that in a lot of my fiction and nonfiction work.
But it's incredible the amount of work that you have done. You've
Well,
worked
yeah.
magazines. We were talking about some of the magazines and print. Tell us about some of that background, the journalistic, as much an author, a seasoned journalist as well.
Yeah, it's all part of the writing game. I mean, I always say, when we were kids, I don't know how old you are, Jim. You look to be about 26, but I
appreciate that very much. Lunch is on me.
The choice of restaurant is on me. When I was a kid, there was this company called Burlington, and they used to have a television commercial. I think it was Burlington, and the tagline for the commercial was, "If it has anything to do with fabric, we do it, and we do more of it than anyone in the world."
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's
For some reason, that stuck with me as a motto of my
Yeah.
own life, but just substitute fabric with writing.
With
And
writing.
that's been the driving force of my life. Again, whether or not I'm good at it, it's subjective. I don't know. But that I want to do it and work hard at it is unassailable. If it has anything to do with writing, I'll do it. And I've done more of it than a lot of people that I know. I've done lots of magazine work. I've done op-eds in newspapers. I've done liner notes on a couple of CDs. I've done plays, two that have come to life on stage, small, limited runs, and the books, of course, and a lot of corporate communications, employee communications. That's the bread and butter stuff. That's how I've been making my living. The writing is the vanity stuff. It's the fun stuff. It's the creative stuff.
Right.
It's the press releases and the employee newsletters and the advertorials and the white papers and the annual reports that actually pay the mortgage, more or less. But there again, I never compromised. I went into those professions because the big component was writing. I would never go into a profession that didn't have anything to do with writing.
What is it about writing that speaks to you? What is it about having to?
No, and I have fights with this. I have fights about it with people because they tell me, well, if it's so hard, why don't you end up doing something else? And I just can't. I say something that makes some members of my family very angry. What I say is, I didn't choose writing. It chose me. That sounds, I hate the way that sounds. And I can see why people get mad at me for saying that. And that's not really like me to say something like that, but I can't help it. I've never wanted to do anything else. So whether or not there's a higher power, or whether or not there's something inborn in us, or whether or not it's passed down from my grandfather or somebody else, I don't know. And I don't have time to think about it because, time is short to begin with, and there's a lot more that I want to write. I have a couple of books more left in me, and specifically, I know exactly what they're going to be and what they're going to be called.
How about screenplays, films?
Yeah, I mean, I have a great film story.
Do you?
Yeah, I'll do the Reader's Digest version because I want to go to sleep soon.
Reader's Digest, Pleasantville, New York.
Yeah. I had something in there too once. What was my story? When I was 20, I was in.
You remind me a little of Mel Brooks. There's a tinge of Mel Brooks in some of your delivery, tinge of it. And there's a fantastic episode. I think they aired it on the Decades Network, or it's on YouTube or whatever, of the time that Dick Cavett interviewed Mel Brooks and how hilarious that was. Mel Brooks and Rex Reed was the other guest. What a combination. Yeah, let's see that.
It's not I didn't write it. He did. But
that's a great one. Yeah, I was saying, gee, he reminds me. There's a tinge of something
really,
and a little of the Mel Brooks of the.
Okay.
Yeah, of sort of like figuring things out as you're going along. Even in the conversation, you're going in different directions, which I find fascinating because I'm like there along with you on this journey, this whitewater raft trip that we're on, which I think is awesome. You're expressing authentically.
Thank you. So I was in the Glass Menagerie when I was 20. I played the gentleman caller. It was a community theater in Lindenhurst on Long Island. And it was a great experience. It wasn't the first time I acted, and it wasn't the last time I acted, but it was an interesting experience. And since then, I've always wanted to write a screenplay about a small community theater group, operating on spit and prayers, trying to get along, dealing with their dreams, dealing with each other, dealing with their families, trying to keep the place going and trying to get the play up. And I wrote one called Menagerie. And it's about a community theater in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, literally and figuratively in the shadow of Manhattan, which plays a big part of the story. And so I wrote it and I started sending it around to producers and film finance companies. And there was a film finance company in Los Angeles that was interested in exploring it a little further. No deals yet, but they said, let's take the next step. Why don't you find out if there's going to be any problems with rights? And I thought immediately, well, why would there be? It's not the Glass Menagerie. It's not the play. It's about a community theater putting it on, but it has nothing to do with the Glass Menagerie. I didn't think rights would have anything to do with it. And they said, you're probably right, but let's check it out just so that we don't make a commitment and then find out that something's going to get in the way. So I did. I found through a lot of research, I found the company that maintained the rights for the copyright rights for the screenplay, anything having to do with the Glass Menagerie, on behalf of Tennessee Williams, the playwright. And they asked me to send the screenplay to them, and I did. And they sent me a cease and desist letter.
Oh.
They told me, do not do anything with the screenplay. And
when you receive a letter like that, what is harder to respond to, the ceasing or the desisting? I've always wondered that. What's more difficult to comply with, ceasing or desisting?
Well, I ceased having optimism at the time, and I desist from punching the computer screen. But what it ended up being is that there were a couple of lines from the rehearsal. This community theater group rehearses the play.
Yes.
And you see a couple of rehearsal scenes, and things happen during rehearsals. There were interruptions, and there were noises outside, which is part of the story because it's hard to put on a play when you have loud noises outside. And they didn't like that. So I said, okay, I'll cut that back. I'll cut it back from 32 individual lines from the play that are in the screenplay to 16. So I did that. No go. They said, do not send this to anybody else or you will be sued. And I argued with them. I said, The Simpsons, the television show The Simpsons, had an episode about Marge being in A Streetcar Named Desire. And they actually made fun of it with some lines from the show in a musical comedy version of A Streetcar Named Desire. So The Simpsons can do that and I can't. And mine is much more reverential to Mr. Williams, to Mr. Tennessee Williams, than The Simpsons was. And they didn't even have a good response for that, but the cease and desist letter remained, and I'm still not able to do anything with it. Now, I'm not giving up. I still have it. I still love it. I would love to direct it and be in it, along with some of my friends from Hofstra, and where I majored in theater for 2 years. But that's one of my screenplays.
Berlin in Canada is asking, are you able to change the name, perhaps? Would that help with it?
Well, first of all, you can't, names of titles cannot be copyrighted. You can't copyright the title of anything, not a play, not a book. So that has nothing to do with it. And that was not their complaint. That was not their problem. But thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah. It gets tricky, doesn't it? It really does get
very tricky because it's just so stupid. It's so silly. I mean, I guess they would fold if I offered them, $200,000. I don't even have $200, but I don't know what it's about, but I don't know the main motivation. I doubt. Oh, here's the thing. This is what I wanted to say. I doubt that they read the screenplay in its entirety. What they did was they flipped through it. They happened to catch a few lines from the play during the rehearsal scenes, and they decided, well, let's just be a bitch about this. That's what I think it's about.
Crazy
Because
stuff.
if they had read the entire screenplay, they would have seen exactly what it is, which that it's a testament to community theater. It's a love letter to Tennessee Williams on behalf of community theater. I think it was a glorious, marvelous story to be told, and there is no reason for them not to let me tell it. So, I had to stop any negotiations that I was having with this finance firm out in LA, but it still exists. And maybe if something happens with your show or something, and somebody gets in touch with me, maybe we can pick it up again, or next year or the year after that. That's a great thing about writing. You write something, it never dies. It's always there. It lasts forever.
So we've touched upon, before we come off the journalistic side, tell us about some of the places where people can see you. I know you have the column in Connecticut Magazine, which is terrific. Where else can they find you?
Well, they can go to my Amazon page, which, I probably has some bio information. They can go to my literary blog, which is Hey You Never Know, with dashes in between all the words. Hey dash blah blah blah. Hey You Never Know .blogspot.com, which has all kinds of essays and on spec feature articles that I wrote that didn't get picked up by magazines, and a whole bunch of really crazy stuff. There's the new column in Connecticut Magazine, which I think is starting actually in May or June, and we don't have a name for it yet.
You have what's the vibe? What's the feeling of that?
It's a humorous take on living in Connecticut. It's life in Connecticut with a humorous slant, and it's at the end. I think it's at the end of the magazine to try to give people, something light and diverting to leave the magazine with after they absorb everything else in it.
We need more of that in our lives for sure. With everything,
I'm really looking forward to that. That's really what I love doing, that kind of thing. I've had several columns over the years in other magazines as well, and a couple of newspapers, and I really enjoy that. I would have loved to have done something like that for Newsday or Time, back in the day when Newsday and Time were big deals.
Yeah. You enjoy humor? You enjoy comedy?
I do. I mean, that's how the whole thing kicked off. The first book, which you mentioned, was the Jewish Book of Lists, and that was not my idea, and it was a humorous book. I had proposed with my friend Bill Freitag, I had proposed the book to Citadel Press. It was purported to be the real stories behind the Bible stories, what really happened. And our working title for it was Jerusalem, a Prophet Center. And they enjoyed the pitch, the proposal letter. They enjoyed the proposal.
Let that sink in, folks. Let that sink in.
Yeah, right. Well, let's wait a little bit. So they didn't want to go for that one, but they did enjoy the pitch letter and the style. And they said, well, we're hoping to do what's called the Jewish Book of Lists, which is what it is, a Jewish book of lists, all different kinds of lists, Jewish lists, Jewish that, Jewish comedians, Jewish traditions, Jewish history, American Jewish history. But we want it to be fun. We want it to be diverting. We want it, we don't want it to be a dry scholarly tome. And you seem to be the guy who can do that. So I signed on, and that was my very first nonfiction book many, many years ago with Citadel Press. And it's been, one book after another after that since then.
So let's talk about that. What are some things that would be on a list in the Jewish Book of Lists? There's the book there.
And I mean, I have to give a disclaimer.
Just giving that reaction. Oh my God.
The problem is there's a time element involved. I mean, there's a lot of things in there that are no longer applicable. I mean, other things have happened in Jewish history because history doesn't end. Jewish actors, Jewish writers, that sort of thing. There have been lots since. So
anything that's carried through that still is today.
Well, one interesting chapter is all the different kinds of Jews there are. Or Asian Jews, African American Jews. I think there's an Eskimo Jew. there's Jewish porn stars, Jewish sheriffs. So I have a chapter on that.
Comedians, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they all are. That's an interesting chapter. I originally wanted to call that chapter Jew 2, TOO, because that's fact. There are so many different kinds of Jews. I think that's a surprise to a lot of people, and I wanted to do a separate book and or lengthy feature article on that, and that's something I'm actually still working on, to propose something like that, a book called Jew 2 or an article called Jew 2. But that's one thing, to answer your question.
That's cool. That's great. The variety is really terrific. I mean, obviously the times we've lived in the last couple of years have been extraordinary and very interesting. How have they inspired you at all, your writing, this time of self-reflection, this time of pause that we have experienced?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Oh, by the way, if you're looking at this, I was... all the rain that we've had recently, I have a rock wall in the backyard and it fell down, and I was moving a big boulder and a huge one, 3 feet across, rolled onto my finger and crushed it. So that's what this is all about. I'm not giving you the middle finger.
I was just about to say.
No. I'll do that when we're off the air.
What do you think? We're on the LIE or something?
But to answer your question, it really, the pandemic has affected me and my family in ways that it's affected all of us. But in terms of my writing, it really has not. That's been the same. And so much of my stuff has to do with memories from the past, with ideas or the future. As a matter of fact, I jotted down ideas for 3 space science fiction novellas that I plan to write soon. So the present really isn't part of my writing unless it's a magazine article. Actually, one last comment about that. I do a lot of writing for this local regional Connecticut magazine called Seasons. And I did do a whole bunch of articles for them about life during the pandemic as it relates to things and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a great new magazine that has been recent.
Seasons? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff for them. I did an interesting piece for them on, like I just said, on weddings during the pandemic and on greenhouses. People are having new hobbies now, and one of them is greenhouses, but that's a very expensive, very difficult hobby.
Yeah.
So I've done a little bit of journalistic work as it relates to the pandemic, but in terms of my writing life, other than that, no, it hasn't affected me at all. I've always done what I've always done, and I've always done it in my home office.
What about television scripts and things of that nature? Has that come your way over the years, Joel?
Almost. It's that close but no cigar thing. When I was in college, I took a television writing course with a great professor, Jerry Delameter, and he had us write a script for Barney Miller, or he had me write. I think every student had a different series, and he really, really liked it. And I was such a naive kid. I said, well, I'll send it in. And he told me that just wasn't going to work. Not if you don't have representation and this and that and the other thing. So, he had to unfortunately deflate my head swelling balloon at the time. But it didn't lessen my eagerness to try it out when I graduated and got a little older. And I did. I wrote a couple of scripts. I wrote a Family Ties. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. I wrote a Family Ties and I wrote a Frasier.
Did you really?
And I pride myself on getting things to people even though I shouldn't. In other words, I have rarely been represented by an agent. I was a while back, but things happen. I get things to people by the power of my pitch letters and sometimes little tricks of the trade that I don't want to share, because if I do, then I'll have to kill you. But
you can put them in your next book when you're how to do it. Here's how you can do it.
I got Frasier over to the producers. This is actually a very, very sad story. I got it over to him, and that's in and of itself a giant step. Just somebody not represented who doesn't have a history in the business to get a script actually read by a producer of a show. But this particular producer perished in 9/11 on the flight to Washington. And I wasn't going to try to backtrack and get anything from that. So I didn't hear anything back after that. But I did write an after school special. That's why I said Family Ties, because I had Michael Gross, who played the father.
The father on Family Ties.
I had him in mind for the male lead of this after school special, and I sent it to him. And I have this letter too. He sent me a letter back, and he said he really liked it. He really loved it, but he was just worried about his own career playing another nice guy father, which is what it was. Actually, that's the way he ended up, but he had a history. He was a Vietnam vet, the character, who was very, very heavy into drugs. And then his young, adoring daughter finds a Life magazine article that features her father as a Vietnam soldier. And it's a story about him doing drugs down, out in Saigon, or not Saigon, but wherever he was. And but he changes his life around and becomes this adoring, wonderful father. And that's the present part of the script, when he was a pleasant father, and Michael Gross just didn't want to be another pleasant father at the time.
Yeah.
So he wished me luck, but I still have the letter, and that's my badge of valor that I did something that resonated with somebody like him. So a lot of close calls, but no, I haven't had anything on TV yet. I did appear in an unsold reality TV show pilot.
Did you really? What was the concept?
It was called Zinging Telegrams. And what it was I have a distant relative whose mother was very proud of the fact that she was related to my grandfather, Benny Bell. And he found me. He's a television producer, actually. He produced a lot of game shows. And he asked me, and he was producing this Zinging Telegrams reality game show, I think for Bravo at the time. They hadn't picked it up yet, but it was going to be for Bravo. And I made believe she wanted to meet me. So he disguised me up as a Las Vegas politician of some sort, to give her some sort of award, like some Jewish charity award or something like that. So the pretense was that it was an award ceremony, but it was actually a surprise 80th birthday for her, the mother.
Ah.
So what he wanted me to do was present her with this award, but then take off my wig and take off the fake whiskers and show myself as Joel Samberg, grandson of Benny Bell. And that was the reveal. That was one of the reveals. There were several like that during this one particular show. But every show would have been a surprise, a pretense of a party that turns out into something else, like a surprise birthday party or a surprise anniversary party. And Pia Zadora was on it, and a couple of other famous people were there, or almost famous people. And we shot it, and it was a hell of a lot of fun, very interesting, very quirky. It was in Las Vegas. But, like a lot of shows, it just didn't sell to the network. But, it exists out there somewhere.
Is that something?
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
You ever have writer's block? You ever have times where everything stops for a brief moment?
No, I don't. Well, yes, but I don't think it's writer's block. I don't think there is such a thing as writer's block. Well, I know a lot of people say that, even most writers. I don't think that exists. I think there are just times when your mind isn't ready to go on to the next thing. Writer's block makes it seem like a psychological thing, and I don't think it is. I think it's a natural component of the thought process. And I think it's a healthy thing, because I think it probably, one thing most new writers, most novice writers don't do. And it's really hard for somebody like me when I'm asked for my advice about becoming a writer, they never want to listen to this. One of the best things you can do and must do is whatever you write, when you're done, put it away for 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 months, maybe a year, then take it out again with a fresh pair of eyes. You'll see things, you'll notice things, you'll recognize things that you can change, that you can fix, that you can eliminate, that you can make active instead of passive.
Yes.
Get rid of a lot of ing words, which is what making it active instead of passive is all about, and it improves it immensely. Well, I think writer's block what's called writer's block is a natural way of making that happen, because you're not going to be doing something for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and then you're going to naturally just go back a couple of paragraphs or a couple of pages from where you ended up, because you have to, in order to get acclimated again to what you were doing, and you're going to notice things that can improve it. So I don't think writer's block is a thing. I think it's a made up word. I think it's a natural process. And have I had days? I haven't had days where I couldn't think of things. I've had days when I just didn't want to work. I've had days when I'm just exhausted mentally and maybe depressed about something, especially with the world we live in today. It's crazy ass world. And I'm just not in the mood. And I know I'm not going anywhere. I know the computer, the typewriter, the keyboard, the notes, the papers will be there in 2 or 3 days. And it's a mental health break. So it's not writer's block. It's a natural break. Writer's break, not writer's
break. I like that terminology. That's more of what it's really
just
like.
told that you have to give me $3 every time you say it.
The room that you're in, a couple of people have been asking about that. Tell us about the room you're in.
Well, that's Tess. That's Tess. That's one of my 3 cats. The other 2 are Maine Coons, who I understand are probably going to get as big as my first car, Chevrolet Impala. So waiting for that to happen. I have a lot of books because I like books. And this is, an office. It's a separate room in my house in Avon, and it's where I do all the work. This is where it all happens. And that wooden thing you see over my right shoulder, that's hiding a litter box.
Very crafty, very creative.
Fortunately, you can only see me and hear me, and you can't smell anything. So let's leave it at that.
3 cats, 2 of which are Maine Coons, or expected to get, like you say, get as big as the 1972 Chevrolet Impala.
How did you know it was 1972?
Of course, I do my research.
Well, it was.
I tell you, yeah.
And I didn't tell you that.
3 grown children, 5 grandchildren. Any of the kids follow in your footsteps? Any writers, any journalists in the family?
Well, I hope not, because my feet go out like this, so I don't want them to follow in my footsteps because I have horrible feet. But I don't know. They're still kind of young. They're all my. I have 5 grandchildren. Well, I have 3 children, and they do other things. And I have 5 grandchildren, and I don't know what they do. And so, the jury's still out on that.
Jury's still out on. Do you remember their names?
Yes. The kids are Celia, Kate, and Dan, and the grandkids are Ronnie, Joel, Sam, Ella, and Mia. Great names, aren't they?
They're fantastic names, of course.
But, if they ask me if they should be a writer, I'll tell them what I tell anybody who asks me about being a writer. And I would say it is probably the worst profession in the world. Personally, I would never want to do anything else, but I think it stinks. It's really bad. I mean, especially
you sound so much like Mel Brooks in the way you just deliver that. Just even the concept of what you just said.
I think I sound more like Anne Bancroft, but anyway.
Well, that could be. With Jack Lemmon, the prisoner of
Second Avenue.
Second Avenue, another great. Avenue. Yes. Who are some of the folks that
his name was Mel? Jack Lemmon's name in that was Mel.
That's right.
Mel and Edna Edison.
Oh, Jack Lemmon, one of my favorites. One of my favorite. And his son Chris lives in Connecticut, Glastonbury, with his family. Chris Lemmon and the whole gang. Who are some of the folks that inspire you? Who are some of those that you love to read? Whose work you enjoy?
My favorite author of all time is Pearl S. Buck of the Good Earth fame. I was asked to read her book in high school, part of the curriculum, and I never stopped. She can describe an entire life in one paragraph. That's her literary power, and it seems perfectly natural. I think that's why I like her. I'm just involved in her stories and in her characters. I also like Howard Fast and Chaim Potok and Stephen Birmingham. And did I say Howard Fast? Yes, I said Howard Fast. He has that Legacy series. And mostly John Steinbeck, of course, a whole bunch. Actually, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird was one of the inspirations for Blowing in the Wind, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. I sort of used that in my head in the background as my guardian angel as I was writing Blowing in the Wind.
All of these are available at Amazon, right?
All of my books are available on Amazon.
These are just a few of the many works and more to come.
I think there's about 7 or 8, including one that I co-wrote with a noted New York psychologist called Smack in the Middle, which is about his time as a heroin counselor in New York in the 1960s. A fascinating story. So I was co-author on that, and a couple of nonfiction and a couple of fiction. Yeah.
That is terrific. Do you lean more fiction, nonfiction, or it doesn't matter? It's whatever comes your way, whatever you're feeling at the time.
With the nonfiction, typically, I mean, it's not a law. I don't even know if it's a rule, but typically you try to get an assignment first. You try to sign a contract before you delve into that, because it could take years. And if you end up working on that and don't get a publisher, and if you're against self-publishing, as I more or less am, and Vanity Press, I mean, it has its place. It's just not for me. Then you want to get a contract for nonfiction. For fiction, only because it's so much fun for me, and I'm compelled to do it, and it'll exist even after I'm gone anyway, and maybe people can enjoy it then, maybe even more so than when I'm alive, as the old goes, the Van Goghs and stuff like that. So the fiction I write, even if I don't have a publisher, and I have 2 other novels now, one that's finished, and I'm going to wait for a little bit of the publicity for Almost Like Praying to break before I try to pitch that one to publishers. It's called Remember Me to Herald Square, and it's a really interesting love story that takes place in the mid-1980s in Manhattan between a newspaper reporter and an actress, and how their careers are on a collision course. I think it's really exciting. It's very cinematic too. I think it would.
I was just about to say, that's immediately what I thought.
It has a denouement during New Year's Eve in Times Square, where the girl, the love interest, forces the guy, the reporter. The girl is the actress. The guy is the reporter. She forces him to come to his apartment that night, close to midnight, and she says, "If you get here before midnight, such and such will happen." I don't want to give it away. And if you don't get here before midnight, something else will happen. So he's running through Times Square during, as the ball is coming down. And it's a race against time, literally. That's why some early beta, what are called beta readers, people who read stuff before anybody else does, to try to give you some guidance and direction and tell you what works and what doesn't. A couple of them have told me that they can't see it as anything but a movie, but that's not why I'm doing it. I want it. My interest is in it being a novel. Whatever happens after that happens. But I have that one. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in the middle of the second draft of a book called Jackie Jester, which is a fictionalized account of my grandfather.
Mm-hmm. Incredible stuff. So you're loving the ride. You're enjoying it.
I mean, like I said before, I'm not exactly where I'd like to be, but if I have to be somewhere, I might as well be than not be.
Key is you're upright, and that's a plus. Anywhere you could be, the main place you want to be is upright.
Yes, I'm just like a piano. I'm upright.
That's it. This was a pleasure, my friend, and somebody that was listening along, who always is here towards the latter part. Mr. George Burns with us this afternoon.
Hello, sir. Hello, God. How are you?
Hello, God. You're speaking to God as well, and he's got his cigar. He's all set, ready to go. He enjoyed himself, and you took him a little bit down memory lane with some of the conversation as well. He was quite a character, wasn't he, Mr. George?
Sunshine Boys, Walter Matthau, great movie. Just saw it with my wife. Yeah, really
lived to 100. 100. I tell you.
He said he could never die because he was booked through 2023 or something like that.
Right. Exactly. And what Carl Reiner say, every morning he would, because we just lost him not that long ago, every morning he would wake up, go to the newspaper, and if he didn't see himself in the obituary page, he'd have breakfast.
Well, my grandfather always used to say, he had a standard line whenever he left. When he visited, he always say, Stay well if you have the time. That was his
Ex-
classic ending to every visit. Speaking of George Burns, John Denver, the late John Denver,
Yeah.
with whom he started. I personally, this is back to the Karen Carpenter book. I personally think that he was a little bit in love with Karen Carpenter, as
John Denver.
was John Davidson and a couple of other people who she worked with. But I explore that in the book too. That's one of the main. You asked about some main themes that come out of it. I think that's a big one, which was that so many people were absolutely in love with her for one reason or another. And
Were you at all
no,
during the
I
early
wouldn't go
years?
that in love in a romantic sense. No, I think I'm
Or just had this
just fascinated
infatuation with,
and
or
fascinated by.
yeah,
Feel bad for.
yeah,
Wished I could have helped. Yeah, in that way, wished I could have
yeah,
helped.
yeah,
But I mean, knowing as much as I know about her now and how many problems, deep-seated psychological problems she had, I don't think I would have wanted to have been involved with her had I had the chance. But here we are. It's 50 years since their first hits, and it's 30
amazing.
years, almost 40 years since her death. And
Yeah.
there are still books being written, and there are still documentaries being produced. I was in 2 of them. There are still hundreds of thousands of YouTube hits on her song, on the Carpenter songs.
Oh yeah.
Millions of fans. I mean, it never
Incredible.
ends, and that
Yeah.
says something. I mean, even today's artists don't have all that. So there's
No.
something there. There's still something there. And no matter how much I covered it, or no matter how much Randy Schmidt has covered it, and the others, there's always more to say, and there's always more to tell, and there's always more to find out. And that's why she's so fascinating.
She was an extraordinary talent on so many levels. Absolutely, my friend. A pleasure having you here. And I hope the show met whatever expectations you had, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I certainly have with you, Joel. It was a real pleasure.
I enjoyed every minute of it. I will not say what Ben Franklin said about friends and fish, that they start to stink after 3 days. I will not say that. I won't say it at all. But I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we can stay in touch and maybe do something else together.
Absolutely. We'll keep the porch light on for you. And as my dad has always said, whenever anybody says something kind or nice, ask them to please put it in writing and address it management. He grew up in Astoria. Yeah, right around the block from Tony Bennett. Yeah, knew Tony, and it was an Irish Italian neighborhood back then. It's still a wonderful area right across.
I was born in Kew Gardens.
Were you?
I was there for the first 6 months, but I found out that Paul Simon was living there at the time, about a block away when I was living there.
Wow.
So maybe I saw him at the playground. Maybe he pushed me. Maybe
I was going to say, maybe at Astoria Park.
On the swings, my parents left me there alone at 6 months of age.
I don't know if you have anything there to drink, but we toast you in style. There we go. I think somebody, Merlin in Canada, was asking, is it, first she says, you're a hoot. Thanks for being here. And Jen Barry in Pennsylvania, Joel, thank you for spending time with us. Come back soon. You are now a Lovity. You're one of the Jim Master Show Lovity. See, of all the awards and accolades you could get in one's career, and here you are saying you haven't quite gotten there yet. Well, today you're a Lovity on the Jim Master Show Live. How does it make you feel?
I feel like an upright Lovity. I never
the best kind to be.
There's only 2 things I wanted to be in my life: a writer and an upright Lovity.
And an upright Lovity on JMS Live. Linda in Florida says, thank you, Joel, for sharing your life stories and career. I hope you do come back. Jane Jane in Sweden says, this was interesting to listen to. Thank you, Joel, for being here. And thanks, Jim. My pleasure as well to have you here, and lots of great comments. Thanks, everybody. Merlin did want to know, are you having a problem typing with the splint on the finger?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does get in the way. It does. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to wait for it to come off.
That's it. It's just part of life, and you just roll with it. That's it.
And I'm lefty, and this is my left hand.
Oh, you're lefty too. So am I. Yes.
All right. Yes, yeah. Part of a special club.
So all the material available at Amazon and look for Joel Samberg. Now, I know that people have asked me too, and sometimes even when you Google, Andy Samberg comes up next to you a lot. No relation that you know of?
He's my grandson. No.
I was going to say a worldwide exclusive. Andy doesn't know yet, but we're going to have Andy next
No,
week, and he's going to find out. We're going to do a big reveal. I must be Maury Povich.
yes, he's my illegitimate father.
Kathleen in New York City, in Queens, actually. In Woodside, she says, Woodhaven area. Thank you for being here, Joe. She thoroughly enjoyed it. And Linda says, thank you for having Joel on the show. It's been enjoyable. Absolutely.
Excellent.
So good stuff,
Thank
my
you,
friend.
Linda.
You can find it all on Amazon and elsewhere. A pleasure. Thanks for being with us, and you're welcome back anytime. And do spread the word. You know, it takes a village. Spread the word about the Jim Masters Show live series. Doing it in Carson Cavett style, warm, conversational.
I will be upright about that. I will do that instantly.
Oh, absolutely. Especially,
instant coffee. Yeah.
We Islanders need to stick together. And it's funny, we talk about it a lot when some guests come on from the island originally, how we refer to it that way. We say the island, or we say we're going on Long Island, because some people, when they're not from it, when they say we're going in Long Island.
Yeah, I live in Long Island. Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah, it's on it, right? Exactly. Now, what about you? I know a lot of people on the island would always say that if anything north of New York City's environs, north of, say, the last part going north would be the Bronx. So anything north of there, you're going upstate for the weekend. So if you're going to Mamaroneck, you're going to Rye, you're going to White Plains, you're going upstate. But then you talk to somebody in Rome, New York, in Syracuse, in Oneonta, and they say, White Plains is not upstate.
Right.
We're upstate. Buffalo is upstate. Right. But it's funny.
There a downstate? I remember the first time when Hillary Clinton was running for senator in New York, she used the term downstate.
Downstate.
And I've never heard that before.
Downstate, right.
I remember yelling at the radio.
City and
there's no such thing as downstate. There's New York City, and then there's that part in between, and then there's upstate. Adirondack, and Buffalo, and Rochester.
Exactly, and that technically Long Island is Nassau and Suffolk County, and Peconic out further, and not governed by New York City at all. It's some people think it's all, that's like Staten Island, like it's part of. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth and connection, but it's not necessarily.
Well, another interesting thing growing up, people always talked about the city. Brooklyn and Queens is physically on Long Island.
Physically on it, right, on the island, yes.
I always struggle with it, but that's part of my writer's brain.
So when you were saying you were going into the city, now I know a lot of people, I remember saying on the island, especially in Nassau and Suffolk County, if you said you were going into the city, or going in the city for the weekend or whatever,
usually
that could... It could be Queens, it could be Brooklyn, it could be, but then if you talk to somebody in Brooklyn or Queens or what have you, they're going into the city, they're going to Manhattan.
Well, that's a big thing. There's a promo now for some new show with Lisa Kudrow, or a movie or something.
Yeah.
And did you see it? And there's that one scene that they show on the quick little preview thing where some kid says to her, "Oh, you live in New York City?" And Lisa says, "Well, Queens, but yeah."
Right.
So it's the same sort of thing.
So now you're in, northern Connecticut. What do you say when you say you're going in the city? Because you're between New York and Boston, and then there's cities around. But when you say we're going into the city, is it still New York for you?
Yeah, for me, yeah. New York City had a big influence on me. I loved going there as a kid. So a lot of Broadway shows. I think my Rosebud moment was seeing Fiddler on the Roof back in 1966, in the city, and everything good. A lot of good things happened in the city. I had a play in the city. I love the city. So yeah, and having spent most of my, half of my life in the New York City environs, including Long Island and northern New Jersey, which is, when I was living in New Jersey, I was closer to Manhattan than I was ever growing up on Long Island.
Yes, right.
So now here,
it's just to swim across the river.
In North Central Connecticut, when I talk about going to the city, I still mean going to New York City.
Still
we have Hartford here, but Hartford's fine for some things, but it's not a city.
The insurance
capital of the city of Connecticut, but it's really.
You're talking about New York.
Like me, it's not a city.
Big city, right?
That's one thing that I'll probably end up talking about in my Connecticut magazine column, because I get into
I'll
some
look for
arguments
that
with
too.
people about that, about whether or not it deserves being Connecticut's capital city. Because if you drive through it, compared to New York City, compared to Manhattan, it looks like a dead city. Now it's not. There's a lot of great things going on north,
Yeah, right.
but compared to
The action
Manhattan,
of a New York or an
it's not a
LA
city.
or
So
yeah,
that's one thing I hope to write about soon.
it's more of a suburban sort of city, right? Exactly. The
And I hope I
insurance
don't get
capital of
cease
the
and
world,
desist.
where all the insurance companies.
Well, it used to be. Yeah, they're all leaving too, and I wish they would. Come the hell out of here. Who needs them? But yeah,
Look for his column next month. Who the hell needs them? That's the title. Who the hell needs them?
right.
With Joel
Yeah, either
Samberg.
that or I'll get a cease and desist letter from the Hartford, the insurance company. Don't ever say that again, young man.
Don't ever say that again. That's right. Exactly. Thanks for being with us. This was a lot of fun, and people got a chance to really learn more about you, the man behind it all. And again, they can go to Amazon, look for Joel Samberg to get all the materials and so much more. And just Google his name; he comes up. And it was a pleasure. You be well, and we'll chat again soon. And spread the word about our show if you know other folks you think
I
would like
promise.
to pop on. And
I promise I will. I am upright about that.
there is no lobotomies or electrocution that happens when you're a guest on our show, or easy breezy.
Okay. I want to keep my head about me. So that's good to know.
That's it. You
Thanks.
take care, my friend. And thanks for being with us, Joel. It was a pleasure, truly.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Joel Samberg here live on the Jim Masters Show Live. What fun. What fun. Really, really cool. Great sense of humor, and a prolific writer as well of multiple works, fiction, nonfiction. He's a magazine columnist. He's written plays. And he definitely has sort of that tinge of a Mel Brooks delivery, doesn't he? A little bit sort of, in that sort of just that witty Jewish style, growing up, from New York, and just having that quick wit sort of feeling delivery, and sort of like, well, I think I'm going to do that. I'm not sure. Did I just mention that? Well, maybe we'll do it. I think I'm going to sort of like working it out as he's saying it, which is pretty cool. And if you joined us late, his grandfather, the legendary comedy songwriter, Benny Bell, and we talked about Benny as well. There he is there at one of the awards shows. And there is our friend Joel here with some of the comedy albums of his grandfather, Benny Bell. You can see where the comedy comes from. And he even wrote a book about him, Grandpa Had a Long One. This is brand new, Almost Like Praying. Blowing in the Wind was another. And of course, the Karen Carpenter book as well that we touched upon. Really cool having him here on the show. A celebrated author. He's humble. He's very humble. Celebrated author and journalist and playwright, Joel Samberg, joining us here on the Jim Masters Show Live. As you know, we have variety on our show. Every show is something different. Every show is something unique. We always have a lot of fun. We always learn something. We're always entertained. Full circle 360 package we deliver here on the Jim Masters Show Live, as far as entertainment and so much more. Tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow for those watching live, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We've got an epic show. Everybody's all excited. They're all epic. This particular one, my buddy Paul Green is back with us for a return visit of the Jim Masters Show Live. He is, of course, a fantastic actor, musician, singer, and more. He stars in Hallmark Channel's When It Calls the Heart. And he plays Dr. Carson Shepard, one of the key characters on Hallmark Channel's When Calls the Heart. He is with us tomorrow. That is Thursday exclusively at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. All the Hardies and the Greenies, as they're called, and all of our JMS Lovities. His fan base is the Greenies and the Hardies. Ours is the Lovities, and they're merging tomorrow. They've been merging, actually. They merged the first time we had Paul on. Paul and I worked together We met at Carnegie Hall when I was emceeing a fabulous holiday concert, and he was one of the performers. And we just struck up a great conversation and stayed in touch ever since. And he came on as a guest. He's going to come back tomorrow. So the Lovities and the Hardys and Greenies will be together tomorrow. Spread the word, gang. Share the YouTube link on your, social media and all. And then coming on Friday, we take you off Broadway to New York City. Speaking of New York City, Nikita Burstein, who is a great friend, and he was a guest on our show about a year ago. And Anna Kasatkis, she is Bernadette. He is Romeo, and they are starring in the critically acclaimed hit off-Broadway Romeo and Bernadette, which is a comedic take on Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So right there on the screen is Romeo and Bernadette, Nikita and Anna. They're going to be with us exclusively live from New York City, possibly even from the theater where they perform, coming up on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. That is going to be spectacular. That's going to be really, really great. So check that out. If you didn't see, Lacey Carpenter was with us yesterday. We had an amazing episode. She played live. She also revealed new music that's rising in the charts. She's a great friend of our show. She's a personal friend of mine, award-winning musician, singer, songwriter, violinist, author. We had an epic show with her yesterday, and so many of the other great guests who've come through recently. Cousins Gibb, Nick, of course, the son of Morris Gibb from the Bee Gees, Henry Lamar. He's amazing. Scott Dreyer, Judy Norton from the Waltons, Stanley Livingston, My Three Sons, Lawrence Juber, who was in Wings with Paul McCartney, Marion Ross. These are just some of the folks that have come through. Again, tomorrow is Paul Green, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, followed on Friday by the stars of the critically acclaimed off-Broadway hit Romeo and Bernadette. Nikita and Anna are going to be here. They're all excited. We're all excited as well. And it's going to be terrific. All of that and more coming up right here on the Jim Masters Show. Whether you watch us live or you watch us in the archives, we're always here for you. You mean a lot to us. Spread the word. Takes a village. It's a lot of hard work getting the word out. Continue to spread the word. Tell everybody you know about our series. We thank Joel Samberg for joining us with his wit, wisdom, and his humor. Check him out at Amazon. You can get all those works, including the Jewish Book of Lists. I can't wait to see those lists. And the Karen Carpenter book and all the others, Almost Like Praying, Blowing in the Wind, and lots more. These are just a few of the ones that we can fit on screen. Gang, you're the best. Thanks for being with us on this earlier afternoon episode of the show. We will be back tomorrow. Busy day for me. I got a couple of television shoots tomorrow and then several radio shows. And then we'll be planning for our evening show as well tomorrow. Take a look at some of the cool comments that are coming in here from the Lovity Squad that is watching from around the world. We always like to acknowledge those folks. Christine Clifton says, Joel, thanks for, and he's still here. He's seeing all of this. He's in the little screen or little queue window. We chat with the guests usually afterwards. Joel, thanks for sharing more about your career and life. Interesting stories, and enjoyed all your humor today. Wish you well with your book and wish you continued success. Thanks, Lovity Joel. Thank you, Christine, for being with us today. Kathleen Walker, thank you for being here. Joel, one of our JMS Lovities as well. Absolutely love it. From New York City, from Woodhaven, where she just moved into her new digs as well. And really terrific. And where Joel is in northern Connecticut in Avon, that's a beautiful area of southern New England and Connecticut. It's between Hartford and Springfield. Hartford, Connecticut, Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a beautiful town, beautiful area. We have a lot of family in that area. And Jen says, Joel, come back soon. Love you. Absolutely. He's always writing, and he's humble about it as well. And again, she reaffirms, Jim, bring him back. I like Joel. That's perfect. So we're doing our job here at the Jim Masters Show, right? Yes, I definitely see the Mel Brooks mannerisms, and thinking for sure. Christine sees that. I think Merlin said she saw that too in him. Is that little of that Mel Brooks quality? Kathleen Walker says, thanks, Jim. Great show. Catch what I missed in the archives. That's why the archives are there. Merlin is excited. Paul Green is coming back for a return visit of the Jim Masters Show live tomorrow. And we're all prepared for that. And we have more things to prepare as well. The lovely comments go by so fast. I know the enthusiasm during our shows is always palpable. And the comments, sometimes we don't even see all the comments. They just zip, 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 zip. We try to capture, some of them as they're going along. That's right. Yeah, Paul Green. Paul and Kate have that handsome boy, Austin. He's so cute. I know. We're going to talk about that and so much more tomorrow. And thank you. And beautiful SoCal, Southern California. She just did a super sticker. Love that, Ann. You're always the best. We appreciate that. And how did you guys like this earlier time? Did you enjoy this afternoon show? For those that are watching live, did you enjoy the time? I know the afternoon time is good for those who are overseas where it's a lot later. But did you guys enjoy this afternoon time? Sometimes when we do an afternoon show, it's on the weekends. We'll do an afternoon show like 2 Eastern, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, 11 a.m. Pacific. But how'd you like this during the week? We moved this around to accommodate Joel's schedule and my schedule. And then I have some television work tonight and other concert events tonight. So we got this in early so we would have the show for you. Thank you so very much. In a beautiful green color. I think it almost matches our lighting here. That there matches that there. Very generous, very kind. That's what you call a super sticker. It helps support our series. Super stickers, super emojis, super chat. That's when the show is live. And if you ever want to help support, a lot of people ask us, how do we help you, Jim, with all that you guys are doing here at the Jim Masters Show? Over 650 shows, epic shows, not interviews. These are conversations with the breadth and scope and variety of what we do and all the extras and everything else. This isn't all just about me. Some people make things just all about themselves. I like to bring it in where, I'm the host and producer. I'm the name of the show, but it's about all of us. That's the key thing. Some people that do shows, some people that do things, it's all about them. Look at me. Here I am, who I am. Oh, I'm great. I tend to bring it in where it's all, of us together. I have my background in television, radio, stage, and film, doing it many years, proud of it, honored by it. But I think in a show, in a series like this, it's about all of us. I celebrate you as much as you celebrate me, and we celebrate each other and our guests. And that's what it's all about. That's, like I said earlier in some of these episodes, I'm very we oriented. Some people are all I, and that fine for them. I'm more about we. And I think that's the key. We is the key. Write that down. I just thought of that. We is the key. Thank you, Ann. You're the best. I appreciate that. Very generous super sticker there. It was an amazing show, Jim. Thank you, Ann. I really appreciate that. And you want to do a cheers? Well, we have our coffee here, which is basically iced coffee now. Warmed it up 2 hours ago. Here you go. We're actually going to walk along the coast today, too. It's a beautiful day. It is around... Now, I know for some of you that are like in areas where it's 80 degrees right now, South Florida, maybe in the 70s in SoCal, we're excited because it's 60 degrees and sunny right now. We're going to go out and capture some of those rays and enjoy a nice, beautiful walk where we're getting together with friends. We're going to be doing a walk, some colleagues as well. We're getting together for a nice walk along the shoreline. Toast to all of you. There's the cheers. You want the cheers? You got your drink of choice, Jen Barry. Jim, can you and guest and lovelies do a cheers? We did a cheers earlier with Joel, but we'll do one for you as well. All right. Sip, sip. I know, the warm spring sun, right? Warm spring sun is what we're getting. We're so excited about it. We're going into spring, and we're in spring. We're going to be going into summer, where some of our viewers in other parts are going to be going into their fall. See you all tomorrow. Enjoy your day and night. Thanks, Jim. Good night, all. Thank you, Kathleen. Kathleen, have you been working with the Mets? I know they've had some home games. and hopefully we're going to see you there soon. Probably going to head out, if not May, we're probably going to head out to Citi Field in June, based on my schedule, because I'm going to be heading to Florida on a television shoot in May, and then my days are stacked with radio shows and TV shoots on location and studio work, and so probably head to Citi Field to see the New York Mets in early June. We're shooting for. If sooner, I'll certainly let you know. Christine Clifton says, thanks, Jim, for this entertaining show with Joel today. Interesting stories. Loved his humor. See you all later this week. Lovely hugs to all, Christine. And again, nice to have everybody here. Great being with my lovely family. And thank you so very much. You're always so generous. You know, if I'm out on the West Coast, boy, I really have a lot of bread to break with people. You know how I always say, I hope we break bread. I say that to the guests. I say that to some of the viewers who want to do that. And I have a lot of bread to break with a lot of people. If you consider 650 plus episodes, I'm going to count it up. I believe we have exceeded 650 episodes. I believe it's just, we've been working so hard here and it's been so busy that I'm going to have to count it up, but I think we have. And we're going to have to acknowledge that and do something special with the 650 episodes, because that is a lot of shows. That's a lot of shows, because, you know, working in television like I do, it can take a television series years and years, 10 years to get to 650 episodes of a series. Some series don't even make it to 100 episodes. So to have done that many in a short period of time, we're also coming up in just a matter of days, I believe, on our 1 year anniversary. No, not 1 year. What am I talking about? 2 year anniversary. It's gone so fast. It feels like it's only been a year with all of you hosting and producing the Jim Masters Show. It's coming up on 2 full years. And I'm talking about solid shows, full length episodes, not 20-minute episodes, half hour. I'm talking about these full length monstrosities here. So Merlin likes afternoon or evening shows. You know, again, this is the live audience. You can watch these episodes 24/7, 365, anytime you want, binge watching on our YouTube channel. But she likes, she said, whatever works for us. Very kind of you. Kathleen just did a super sticker. Thank you very much. And a nice blue. So that matches, I think, sort of the lighting here and maybe some of the lighting there, right? Cool stuff. Yeah. And maybe one of the colors that's blinking up there. Kathleen Walker, New York City and Woodhaven, super sticker. Thank you very much. That really helps. And I appreciate that. Really, really helps with all that goes on behind the scenes, which is extensive. Thank you, Jane and Merlin and Anne and Linda. It's your 31st anniversary today. Well, happy anniversary to you. Congratulations. We got to toast this. Anne says it's our 31st anniversary. Happy anniversary. And here's to many, many, many more years of wedded bliss, health, and happiness from me and all of us at the Jim Masters Show live to you, Anne. Congratulations and cheers. We toast you, Anne, in Southern California. Really beautiful to have the anniversary and to celebrate it today, right here on the Jim Masters Show live. That's pretty cool, huh? Colleen, as far as the New York Mets says, I'm probably going back part-time next homestand. Great. Fantastic. That's cool. Trying to get more hours. You are welcome. You are part of our lovely family. Once you watch, you don't have to comment, you know, gang, to be part of our lovely family. Just as long as you're viewing and watching and enjoying what we do here, you're part of the JMS lovely family. You're very welcome, Anne. And again, Godspeed to you and your family. Sláinte Jim, as I do cheers to you, and I'm actually standing in the warm spring sun. Love you all, Sláinte. Jen is outside. Jen is taking the class outside today, which is really nice. Linda says, yes, I enjoyed this time, Jim. Thank you very much. We always enjoy when you're here. Christine says, I like some afternoon shows during the week. If we cannot watch live, we're thankful for the archives. few weeks, 2 years of JMS live shows. Cheers and lovely to all. Thank you, Christine. I can't believe it, huh? It's gone by that fast. You're very welcome, and again, congratulations from your lovely family here at the Jim Masters Show Live. You guys are the best. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to give it a thumbs up, like on our YouTube channel. Leave a comment for us. If you have questions, if you want to share how much our series means to you, if you want to express something that you enjoyed about this episode or any of the episodes of the Jim Masters Show Live series, drop a comment right underneath this episode. You'll see a comment section underneath this episode and all the episodes. We read the comments. We try to be very, very responsive as quickly as we can. Sometimes there's a lot of comments. We get a lot of emails, text comments. We try to get to as many as we can, as often as we can, while still getting some sleep and remembering to eat. I haven't eaten today. I don't think I've eaten anything today yet. I'm going to have to eat. It was a really busy day. I was on radio all day this morning and earlier, and then we have this afternoon show. So just a busy day. We're going to eat. We're going to eat heartily to make up for it. But definitely drop a comment underneath on the YouTube channel. That helps us big time because it gets the word out further. More viewers get to see these episodes as well. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, by all means, do it. It helps us, but also you're then part of our lovely family. You get keep abreast, alerted on all kinds of cool surprises and specials and episodes and everything that's going on here at the Jim Masters Show Live when you subscribe to a YouTube channel. There's no cost for that. I don't know why they use the word subscribe. It's sort of deceiving because you think that subscribe means you're getting like a magazine subscription or something. But yeah, I guess you're subscribing to the idea that you enjoy what we do here at the Jim Masters Show. All right, we are the Lovities. Yes. Relax and go for your work now. Absolutely. But first, everybody's saying hi to everybody. First, we're going to eat, and then we're joining a big group to go and do some power walking along the beautiful coast in this 60-degree weather here. All right, gang. Great day. Thanks for being with us on this episode of the Jim Masters Show Live. Again, Paul Green is with us on our next episode, and then Nikita and Anna are going to be with us after that. And there's so much more. We have so many incredible shows in store. And thanks for your support. Thanks for your love. Thanks for your comments, your tweets, your Facebook messages, sharing the YouTube episode links on your social media, and inviting your friends, colleagues, associates, family to tune in, to watch, to subscribe, to view and enjoy. Really helps us grow, make that Lovity family even bigger, right? Which is kind of cool. The world could certainly use more Lovity. And so glad that you guys are a part of it. Good stuff. Thank you, Merlin. Thank you, Jane. And Jim, thank you to you for you, yourself, and your show, bringing all of us together. Zen. Jen is Zen. Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. My friend there in Allentown, Pennsylvania, who is watching outside in the spring weather. That's kind of cool. You got it, Ann. We'll be here. Cool stuff. My buddy Paul Green back with us tomorrow. All right, we're going to sign off. We got lots to do, lots to get ready for, and enjoy your day. And for those that are watching live, we'll see you on the next episode. For those of you watching this in the archives, stay right there. There's 650 plus episodes you can binge watch. Go back a year, go back 6 months. Take a look at some of the amazing guests, conversations, and fun we've had on this series that we call the Jim Masters Show Live. Be well, take care, love one another, be good to one another. We don't say goodbye here. We always say just see you later. We say cheers, sláinte. We say shalom, sayonara, avida zain, moi loop, and ciao. And we'll catch you later on the next episode of the Jim Masters Show. Thanks for being with us. We love you all. Be well, take care, love one another, be good to one another. Did I say that already? What if I didn't? It's good to re-emphasize that because it's important. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.